Good evening and welcome back to another episode. It is now 2021, and I know I've been getting a lot of questions about the first couple of months at least of this year and what some of the themes are and kind of what to expect. So I am going to dive a little bit deeper into some of these themes per month as a general overview that we can take a look at. And not only that, I'm also going to work with also some self-care tips during that time as well. So here we are in January. So some of the themes that are coming up here is that right now we're really about honoring our life lessons, our soul growth, our study, our higher learning. So if you want to write these things down, feel free. But some of the pieces around this is so you know that here on Earth, even though it may become a city of light at some point, even though we're going through a huge time of evolution and growth and anchoring the consciousness here on this Earth, it's also an initiation for your soul, as well as the life lessons that we have on this planet as well is what adds to our soul wisdom as we continue to evolve and grow as spiritual beings having this human experience. It adds to the collective wisdom as well after the fact. And of course, a lot of the lessons that we go through in this life, they deepen our experience. And as we make our way through this life as well, these experiences is what allows us to grow, evolve, gain that wisdom, and to really find what is true for us in this lifetime, as well as tap into our potential and possibility if you want to go that route. Some are totally fine with certain structure and going day by day. And sometimes that's exactly what they love, and that's a part of them, and that is great. There is no judgment on what you do with your life. But my biggest thing around that is as long as we are honoring ourselves and our values, and as long as we're aware of our conditioning and starting to deprogram these unhealthy conditioning mechanisms that have been ingrained in us for so long, and especially since, essentially from birth all the way up to our adulthood, and then even it continues on from there. So these lessons that we experience, it doesn't mean that we have to get everything right, that we have to become this sense of perfection. We are already high vibrational beings, and I've talked about this numerous times. And a lot of us think we're going to get to the state of enlightenment where everything is just, rainbows and butterflies and everything's just easy, smooth sailing and there's no detractment and yada, yada. And sure, that might be true for some people. However, we are humans having a human experience. We will experience the full spectrum of emotions. It's how we handle and respond to our experiences that makes all the difference. Earth is also a place of duality, and this helps us to understand so much more. And each time or each day that we're here, we actually deepen more and more. And if this is hitting you at a rather difficult time, just remember that all of these experiences are just that, experiences. We may have emotional triggers. We may have emotional charges. We may have our experiences from the past telling us how things should go. But at the end of the day, we get to choose how we respond. And I know a lot of us have been through a lot of trauma in our life. And that doesn't mean that this experience is being diminished either. However, when we do go through trauma, we do need a good support system in place. We do need someone who can hold us in that trauma and help us work through that. Just thinking positive sometimes isn't going to get you out of certain situations. Sometimes we need a little bit more than that, and that's okay. There is nothing wrong with that. And try not to be in the state of perfection or thinking I've done this right or wrong. sometimes when we go through our difficult times, we see it as we did something wrong, we made a mistake, instead of seeing them as the real opportunities that they are. If it's something that we didn't like, is there something that we learned through the process? And I've brought this around a few times over, but I had a stalker for well over 10 years. And that repeated experience actually taught me how to stand in my power and not take no from the authorities as an answer, and to actually step into my power and demand justice be served. It's amazing what one person can do when they're standing in their power and truth. Imagine if we all banded together with that same frequency. As a collective, we would be unstoppable in so many ways, and in positive ways. I'm going to reinforce using this for the good. Another huge piece around this, though, finding a way to grow, but also soften your heart through the highs and the lows. And I know this is a hard piece, especially when it feels like other people are attacking you, bringing you down, not supporting you, but also seeing that as a reflection of them, their projection of where they are limited in their life, and not taking it personally. And when I say don't take it personally, I don't mean, okay, now you're just going to allow this person to talk to you that way and walk all over you and that sort of thing, because that's not okay. We can see someone in their pain and in their projection, and also step back and not feed into it and play a part and enable that behavior to keep going. And just know that your soul is most definitely growing. And this is the whole point. So in January here, basically to summarize, is that we're really just understanding our soul growth and our soul path, what our higher learning has been, and how we can use that to project forward in such a positive way into our future and into the rest of our life. But here's another piece. This could also mean that you're ready to start a new area of study or growth. It could be some structured learning. So it could be something in university, it could be a school, it could be a training course or a workshop, something that you keep getting lit up by and pulled to. And if you're also having a difficult time in any sort of relationship, again, it's another reminder for soul growth. And how I like to see my relationships is that they can be a reflection of my values at times, or what I'm willing and unwilling to accept in many ways. Of course, no one is perfect. But in relationships, it's important to have, the same values. Our interests, they matter only to a small extent. Our interests will change. We change as people. We become 20 different versions, if not more, of ourselves. And our interests will change. Typically, our values will not change. And that's what you want to create a connection on, is your values. Relationships are also a great way to grow as we're here. And I know this one can be very hard because I've gone through not many, that sounds terrible, but I've gone through a couple different relationships. And I really didn't get the value piece for a long time. I thought the values were there, but the deeper I dug, the more I realized they weren't fully aligned. There were many things that were values of mine that were not of the other person, and that's what caused a lot of strain. And in the end, typically, is what ended things. So one thing you need to remember for January, and to reflect this as a journal prompt throughout the month, is how are you being called to grow or learn? And typically, they come hand in hand. Typically, we do both. So as we grow, we are learning. And it's interesting because now we're going to go into the self-care. So if you need to re-listen to some of these, that's totally fine. It's really interesting because the next piece for January is around self-care. And what it's around is tapping into your unlimited abundance. So here's some journal prompts for you. What is the story that you're telling yourself about abundance or money? And it's interesting because the thing with abundance is that many of us will associate abundance with more responsibilities or more issues, or that we're not worthy. But in some of the words of one of my mentors is that nature is abundant by nature, and we are a part of nature. Therefore, we are abundant by nature. So when you look at nature, you will find abundance in all forms. Apples grow by the orchard. Blades of grass grow by the millions. We've been conditioned to always think of things as a survival piece, or that we constantly have to give things away. We also struggle to receive from others. So abundance is not just about money, it's also how we receive. Even a compliment, or someone opening up a door for you, or someone just smiling and making eye contact. It could even be you finding a dime on the ground, right? So if it is about money for you, how do you look at 5 cents versus a $100 bill versus like a $500 and things like that? It's really interesting to see that most people will place more value in money the higher the number gets. But when you look at the smaller aspects of money, like a dime or a nickel, most people will look at it like, that's no big deal. That's nothing. However, what do you think makes up the larger numbers? If we can't be grateful for the smaller amounts, how can we expect that to accumulate? So I really want you to sit with this as a journal prompt and ask yourself, what are my beliefs around money? Security around money? What are my beliefs on how I should act with a certain amount of money? Do I determine a certain amount of money with success? You can also ask yourself, where do I block myself off from receiving? Do I receive hugs and love from other people? Do I receive their compliments? Do I receive their support? Abundance is our natural state, and what you focus on will expand. So it's choosing an abundance mindset or being in scarcity. Most of us are programmed to be in scarcity. Like there isn't enough. Also notice the words that you speak to yourself. So just notice if it's amplifying the sense of abundance or if it's leading into more of the scarcity side. This is really important to notice if you're constantly beating yourself up or constantly judging yourself or shaming yourself, having troubles talking tonight. So just making sure that where your thoughts go. And I know it's hard because we have many thoughts coming in and day out. But one thing I'm going to ask you is, where do your thoughts come from? And are they all yours? That's the thing. We don't know if all these thoughts bounce around our head, if it's all ours, or if it's fill-ins or projections from other people. When you think of emotional thought forms, that comes on the wavelength of EMF. So it's interesting to see. Maybe our brains are like a radio, and sometimes we tune into different channels. What if we can tune it into the higher channels and create a new neural pathway instead of going into self-sabotage and self-judgment and shame? We are not our past. Our past does not dictate our future. We are powerful creators. Also, take time for some gratitude. What are you grateful for? Try to name 1 to 3 things daily for January. And the thing that I've noticed, especially in business, the more I focused on trying to get more people and trying to fill up things, and the less I focused on things that I really, really loved, and the less time I took for myself, the more resistance actually came up in my business. But the more time that I focused on going for that float tank, going for that walk, taking some extra needed sleep time, I would wake up to all these different emails of people interested in classes or sessions or whichever. So sometimes you do need to let go just a little bit. Yes, take inspired action, but you don't need to be doing busy work all day long. So how are you going to allow yourself to receive the unlimited abundance that is yours by nature? So that's January. January is just packed full of really good themes, and I really love it. So when we go into February, those who are listening, this may really resonate with you when you hear it. Maybe not, but those who it does resonate for, this is going to be a part of your task as well. But I think as a general rule, even if it doesn't resonate, we still need to focus on what we're doing here. So what's coming up now is seeding the light within by staying grounded. So the interesting thing here is that sometimes this might be us being a cosmic ancestor. Or it could be just reminding us that we all have this light frequency within us. And we need to anchor that into the earth. And we do that just by being grounded itself. So making sure our root chakra is in check, making sure our earth star chakra is in check. So you can do a meditation, go through all your chakra systems, ensure the root is connecting into the earth, moving to the center of the earth, and feeling all that vital earth energy moving up. But seeding your light in your own way. And typically, when this really comes up, it's because many of us have already incarnated on earth a few times over. And many of our souls are dedicated to the era of awakening and bringing about a long-awaited shift in this evolution here. And as you all have probably felt since 2012, we've been at a tipping point. And a lot believe that we've already passed that tipping point and we're on the new era. So the more grounded that we are during this time, the more helpful it will be. And it's interesting too, because we have so much coming to a head. We have so much truth that is about to come to light. But if we all stay grounded and centered and keep focusing on our own vibrational frequency and anchoring in that here, anchoring in the truth, anchoring in the integrity, it's going to make this shift a lot easier. And it's interesting because the other piece is ensuring that your heart chakra system, your heart energy is open and expanded, because you'll anchor more of that on this planet. And of course, there's going to be people that this is not a part of their journey. And the thing is, everyone has free will here. So some can choose to be on this path and some can choose to be on the opposite path. But if you're listening, I take it that you're not on, the dark path and that you're anchoring in your light, in your love, your integrity here on earth. And that is going to make a huge difference. And it'll actually seed more wisdom here as well, not just for you, but also for the planet to ripple that out to other people. And sometimes you may feel like we need to astral travel to another place to anchor in our frequency. You can do that too. Absolutely. And it's interesting because the more grounded we are, the more stable Earth's energy is as well, and the less reactive people will be. And when I say reactive, it's mostly, it'd be like a less fear frequency. Some of us may still react because some things that come out might be a huge deal, right? However, less reactive meaning less fear response. So as we are here growing as individuals, you're also part of a larger collective that's bringing about this shift in the frequency. You can be in the world, but not of it, and still anchor in that love. So your prompt for February is to choose to anchor your light and stay as grounded as possible. So even though this is a February action, you can do this anytime. But I think it's good to go through the first steps as well to really go into, okay, what am I learning? What am I doing? And then step into more of that authentic nature of you and ground that in. And it's interesting because the whole self-care piece for February is around actually moving your body. It's all around movement. So when we think of movement, it actually helps us integrate. It helps us move energy. It also helps us shake out anything that's stuck in our body. It also gives us, at times, sometimes a bit of like a Kundalini experience as well. Not always, but then we get in touch with our bodies, we get in touch with the energy fields around us. We can actually feel what's going on, and we can move things pretty well. Mostly internally, though, right? Is to shake up the energy and to get things moving. So to unleash the movement part of you, whether that's going for a run or a walk, maybe you need to get up and dance more. I know I've been dancing like 5 times a week lately over the last few weeks. And it's really interesting to see that change of craving that movement. And sometimes our body really needs this, especially with the liver connection and the gallbladder. This can help us make decisions. It can help us have a catalyst for change in our life. There's many benefits to coming through this movement piece. So that's the action step for February, is just get out and move in some way. So now we're going to go a bit into March. And I'm sure a lot of you listening are leaders in some way. You may not feel like it now, but there's something here for that. So in March, there's going to be a new direction being paved. And especially if you're in any line of work like coaching or healing or whatever the case may be, if you've never had a fully positive leader in your life, this is your time to become that leader that you wish you had. Create your own community here. Sometimes you can't wait until that road is perfectly laid out. And you won't be following your own path at this point. Some of you are kind of those shakers who need to create a new path and a new way of being. So if you can't find someone to show you the way, then make your own way. Don't allow that to discourage you from stepping forward as the leader that you're born to be. Sometimes the most needed leaders on this planet are the ones who don't wait for that permission or waiting for the time that they feel ready. Because believe me, with how much, for example, that I've been stretching myself recently, there's never a part of you that's ever fully ready for that. There are maybe days that feel easier than others, but you'll come across resistance because you're going into a new way of being, uncharted territory, working through your belief systems. And I tell this to my clients all the time. When you're working and growing and evolving, you're stretching yourself. And sometimes we want to go back into who the person we once was, but that person doesn't exist anymore. Your ego tries to keep you comfortable too. So your ego will try and come in and say, hey, this is safe. It's time to go back into the safety of what we know, even though it doesn't feel good. And you don't want that. It's good knowing that the first voice is your intuitive voice. The second voice that comes in with something is your fear. And the third voice is your ego. Always follow your first voice, your first instinct. And typically, when you're creating a new path, or even if you're going one that's already basically paved, you're still essentially figuring out your path as you go. Everyone's path looks different. You are leading yourself, and eventually you will magnetize those other leaders that you really do need. There was a time where I thought I didn't need anyone at all, and that's not true. It took me a while to find that mentor and that leader. And things sometimes have to fall in place first, and that's perfectly fine and normal. This March step is for all of you leaders, here to pave a path that hasn't been done before, to go first and lead the way for others who you are calling in. Your clients, your business, who you serve, they are waiting for you to show up as you. They don't want you to be someone you're not or to do something that doesn't feel good. They're waiting for you to fully step into who you are. You're the only one on this planet who has your unique set of skills and gifts and experience. Don't compare yourself to other people, other healers. Don't do the comparison piece. Do it for the younger version of you. Do it for the leaders who will follow you. You make it easier for others to follow your lead. So your action for March is to think of, how can you be the leader you wish you had? What are the qualities that make you this leader? How does this make sense for you? What new path have you been craving to make? And what is stopping you? There are some great resources out there, and I can point you in some of those directions as well if you guys need. It's time to step up and lead. It's 2021, guys. It's time to lead. Sovereignty is coming back to the people. Our healing is in our own hands. It's amazing to see what is changing and what is coming about now. There's so many powerful people claiming their gifts, their abilities. And if you've been shrugging yours off for a while, it's time to stop. And I know it's easier said than done, but my God, I spent 9.5 years playing small. And for what? I mean, I'm grateful now for where I'm at and the steps I'm taking now because I feel so much more ready. In the last 4 months, I felt like I've been on a rocket ship. But if you don't have to go through that, then don't spend 9 years like I did, doing everything in a weird way. And I'm grateful for it now because I can teach my students and other clients on what not to do based on what I've done. But keep going in your journey. Start really honing your gifts. Don't play small. It's not going to serve you. So you need to know your value and your worth in what you do, and not in an egotistical way, but just knowing that you have these special blend of gifts and qualities that make you a one-of-a-kind gemstone on this planet, just waiting to share their information with the world. So once you do this, the self-care action is to actually celebrate yourself, knowing that you are worthy of all of this and so much more than you could ever imagine. The potential, the possibility is all there, and really focus on what your vision is. I also want you to celebrate where you've come from. Where did you start? What are all the wins along the way? It doesn't matter how big or how small. What are your wins? And the celebration could be many things. It could be, say, going for a float tank experience. I do that as a celebratory thing, or if I really need to download some work. But you also don't have to spend money. It could be going for like a little trip to, say, a waterfall. It could be a cacao ceremony. It could be just writing down what you're celebrating, creating an evidence list of the things you've accomplished. So celebrate, celebrate, celebrate. So the next 3 months are really just doubling down on what we need to grow and learn, how we can seed our light into this planet, our love, our integrity, our truth, our sovereignty, and begin forging our own path, being that leader we wish we had. And then, of course, all the self-care tips. How can you receive? How can you open yourself up for receiving? How can you move your body and create more movement in your day-to-day? And how can you celebrate yourself more? So, a lot of great self-care and a lot of great action steps for the next few months. If you have any questions or if you got value out of this, please let me know. I love hearing your guys' feedback and I so appreciate it. And we will be doing another episode soon, so stay tuned. Until next time.